everyone. Okay, so till last time we did up till the administration where we covered the taxation, army, and trade, isn't it? The first empire, when we were doing first empire, we covered till trade. So today we come on to the next heading, and that is the next ruler, Bindusara. Did you all revise?
Yes, ma'am.
Acha.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we'll be doing Bindusara. Bindusara extended the Mauryan Empire as far as Mysore. He defeated and annexed 16 small kingdoms. The only state that was left out was that of Kalinga. The kingdoms to the extreme south were friendly, so he did not annex them. During Bindusara's reign, the Mauryan administration functioned smoothly. The empire had good relations with Greeks, Syrians, and Egyptians. So now here they are telling you that Bindusara was such a ruler who maintained what his father had conquered. That means the empire which Chandragupta had conquered, he maintained it and he defeated 16 small kingdoms all around. He had nearly conquered the entire. Can you see this green area here? All this was the part of the Mauryan Empire. And though this map is showing you Ashoka's extent, but actually it was done by Chandragupta and Bindusara, who occupied every part nearly, leaving the few south states which were friendly, and so he left them, he did not conquer them. Apart from that, there was this place called Kalinga. Can you see here? This was the place which was left unconquered. The rest was all conquered by Bindusara, and rather it was conquered by Chandragupta, and he was the one who, after his father Chandragupta, maintained that kingdom well enough. His reign was from 297 BC, that means after the death of Chandragupta, till 273 BC. These dates are to be remembered. Now we come to Ashoka. After Bindusara was Ashoka. Ashoka's reign lasts from 273 BC to 232 BC. Bindusara was succeeded by his son Ashoka. The Mauryan Empire reached its peak under him. Ashoka invaded Kalinga in 261 BC. Please underline this, 261 BC, and defeated the Kalinga army. Kalinga surrendered, and for the first time, the whole of Indian subcontinent, except the regions of extreme south, was under his rule. So Ashoka was succeeded, Bindusara was succeeded by his son Ashoka, and it was in 261. The only place Bindusara could not conquer was Kalinga, and it was in 261 that Ashoka conquered Kalinga as well. That is why when you are seeing the Ashokan empire's extent, you are seeing it that even Kalinga has been conquered. So now Kalinga was a tough kingdom. It gave a stern resistance, but gradually, after a lot of bloodshed, it was annexed and conquered by Ashoka. He was a very able king, and he is also known as Ashoka the Great. You all must have known. So, this is what we are going to do next. Kalinga War. The War of Kalinga was a turning point in the life of Ashoka. Thousands of soldiers had died on either side. Many were wounded and crippled. There was death and destruction everywhere. This made Ashoka sad and unhappy. He decided he would never fight any more wars. He gave up all forms of violence and became a strict vegetarian. He embraced Buddhism for the rest of his life. Digvijay, or the policy of conquest, was replaced by Dharma Vijay, or victory of Dharma. So here we know about one more thing which tells abundantly that Kalinga War was the turning point in the life of Ashoka. He fought this war, and in this war, what happened was basically the entire nation, both the parties, both the uh, kingdoms suffered heavily. There were huge losses of people's life. There were a number of soldiers who were wounded. There were a number of soldiers who died. There was mass destruction. And finally, seeing that bloodshed, he gave up war, though he conquered Kalinga. But after the conquest of Kalinga, it came out to be a turning point in his life. Seeing such a lot of misery and bloodshed, people crying, people dying, this affected Ashoka so much, so badly, that he gave up wars and he strictly became a Buddhist follower. He became the follower of Buddhism, and apart from this, he stopped violence, he stopped destruction, he stopped conquest of more areas, and he became a strict vegetarian in his diet. Then they tell you Digvijay, that means to conquer the world, to conquer everything. Instead of calling himself Digvijay, he preferred to be known as Dharma Vijay. And what was Dharma Vijay? The victory of the faith, the victory of the Dharma. So this is what he did. Okay. Next we go on to the heading called Ashoka's Dhamma. Ashoka was inspired by the teachings of the Buddha. Ashoka wanted his people to live a virtuous life. This he called Dhamma. Dhamma is the Prakrit form of Sanskrit word Dharma. Ashoka's Dhamma preached moral values. He advised people to respect their elders and to practice ahimsa, that is not non-violence. Ashoka was against the killing of animals. Above all, Ashoka wanted peace in his empire. So it was realized that he followed Ashoka's Dhamma as a new heading. He followed the Dhamma, that is the righteous way, the following the right conduct and right way. Now, when he said Dhamma, it was a Prakrit word, which in Sanskrit meant Dharma. Now, Dharma here was not any particular religion he was talking of. He was basically trying to tell people to live a virtuous life, to live a life which was full of great values, moral values were highly looked upon, in which he said you must respect your elders and you should not follow any kind of violence. You should be respectful towards each and every one. He wanted peace in his empire, and he treated his people in the kingdom as a fatherly figure. He became like a father and protective about them. Then we talk of welfare measures. That means what all he did to make his people feel good enough and comfortable. Were the measures he took? Ashoka believed that the king should look upon his subjects as a father, treats his children. He was responsible for carrying out a lot of welfare activities like building of roads, planting of trees, construction of wells, rest houses for travelers, hospitals for the sick, etc. So now, in his welfare activities, he took up everything that was beneficial for the kingdom. He did everything that was in the name of his people. He became a fatherly figure for them and worked in various ways by maybe constructing the roads, building up the roads, planting up shady trees for travelers, making rest houses, hospitals for the sick. So, all this work was to make his people in the kingdom feel comfortable. The spread of Dhamma. In order to spread his Dhamma, Ashoka appointed officials called Dhamma Mahamatas. Please underline this Dhamma Mahamatas. Now, what he did was to spread his word, to spread his dhamma. That means all the moral values which the people were supposed to follow. He asked and appointed certain officials to do the work. And those people who were spreading Dhamma all around were known as Dhamma Mahamatas. Now they were required to explain Dhamma to the people and to supervise the moral life of the people. So now their duty, Dhamma Mahamatas had their duty to look after that the details of what is to be explained to the people. He wanted the people to be aware of the moral values in life.
Excuse me,
And
ma'am.
so for that, yes,
Ma'am, due to internet connection, I have joined late. Ma'am, please what we are doing.
listen to the video once it's ready. Ashoka had friendly relations with his neighbors. He sent and received envoys to and from them. Now, envoys are basically the people, sending people to convey friendly relations. And he even accepted people coming from other parts, his neighboring countries, as in friendly gesture. He sent Buddhist missions to Burma and other Southeast Asian countries. Ashoka also sent his son Mahendra and daughter Sanghamitra to Sri Lanka on a Buddhist mission. And he also propagated Buddhism in Chola and Pandya kingdoms. So now they are telling you that Ashoka maintained friendly relations with other parts of the country, his neighboring countries, and among them he spread Buddhist missions also. He had sent one mission to Burma, then one to Southeast Asian countries, and he even appointed his own son and daughter to look into the matter and spread his Dhamma all around the world. Clear? In the south, where the Chola rulers were there and Pandyas were there, to them also he had propagated or spread a word of Buddhism there. Ashoka's edicts. Now, edicts, what are the edicts? They are the inscriptions written on walls or pillars. Okay, so Ashoka's rock edicts and pillar inscriptions show the magnificence of Dhamma. The edicts stress on simple virtues like respect for one's parents, respect for the teacher, and respect for all living beings. The edicts are written mostly in Prakrit. Underline this, it's written in Prakrit. The edicts have been placed in different parts of the empire so that people might read them. These edicts have been found in India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Nepal. So now we talk of Ashoka's edicts, which were written inscriptions on maybe pillars or on brick pillars and walls, rock edicts, etc. So these inscriptions were basically telling in detail about the policy of Dhamma. That means what was the rightful way to do things. In that, it included how to respect the teachers, how to respect one's parents, respect for every living creature, not following violence of any kind, being humble and kind towards all. All this was written, and all these edicts, Ashoka's edicts, till date have been found in various parts of the country as well as in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Nepal. Now, here is a small little box, we'll read it. A rock edict of Ashoka, beloved of the gods, King Priyadarshi, has caused this Dhamma edict to be written. Here in my domain, no living being are to be slaughtered or offered in sacrifice, nor should festivals be held, for beloved of the gods, King Priyadarshi sees much to object to in such festivals, although there are some festivals that beloved of the gods, King Priyadarshi, does approve of. Formerly, in the kitchen of beloved of the gods, King Priyadarshi, thousands of animals were killed every day to make curry. But now, with the writing of this Dhamma edict, only three creatures, two peacocks and a deer are killed. and the deer not always, and in time not even these three creatures will be killed. So now here's a beautiful inscription which calls Ashoka with a different name, Priyadarshi, beloved of the gods. That means जो ईश्वर को प्यारा है, जो ईश्वर का भी प्रिय है. And he was also known as Ashoka Priyadarshi. That means he was whose view is pleasant to be seen, who's Priya. Priya means who's loved. Okay, so he was referred to that in that edict. It was told that no sacrifice will be offered, no slaughtering of animals would be taken place now, and the festivals also will not be celebrated in huge pomp and show, but it should be simple. And then he told about his own kitchen also. On those edicts, it's written that earlier thousands of animals were slaughtered, were killed every day. But now, once he has followed Dhamma, he has given up non-veg, then animals could not be killed.
अरे वो
So,
अब्दुल्ला के
please
पापा
switch off
के
your
तबीयत
mic.
अच्छा
Switch off your mic, please. And in
अब्दुल्ला
that,
के पापा के
he says that till now only three animals have been killed, in which two peacocks and a deer were killed. And he says and assures that gradually even these animals will not be slaughtered. Did you know the national emblem of India has been taken from the Ashokan pillar at Sarnath? Next, the wheel, which represents kinship and earthly rule, features on the Indian flag. So now you see this. This is our national emblem. It is taken from Ashoka's pillar at Sarnath. And this you can see is the Ashoka Chakra, which is also there in our national flag of India. Okay, can you see Ashoka's pillar at Varanasi? And then bull capital at Rampura, Purva. Okay, so these are the few things you need to know. After that, can you see the Sachi Stupa? The great stupa at Sachi was originally commissioned by Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BC. Its nucleus was a simple hemispherical brick structure built over the relics of the Buddha. Now, where Buddha died, just over that, it was constructed and made into a relic structure, semi-hemispherical. That means it was in a semi-hemisphere. This is the semicircular structure. Okay, decline of the Mauryan Empire. The Magadhan Empire or the Mauryan Empire, which had been reared by successive wars culminating in the conquest of Kalinga, began to disintegrate of after the exit of Ashoka in 232 BC. The Mauryan Empire was finally destroyed by Pushyamitra Sungha. Please underline this name. It was this man who had conquered and destroyed the Mauryan Empire. He was a Brahmin general of the last Mauryan king named Brihadratha. Pushyamitra killed Brihadratha in public and usurped the throne of Patliputra. So after Ashoka, the kings could not be very powerful, could not turn out to be a very powerful rulers. So it was under the last successor, who was Brihadratha. He was killed by a Brahmin general called Pushyamitra Sunga, who in 185 BC, after killing Brihadratha in public, that means in front of the public, Brihadratha was killed, and his throne, that means his crown, his kingdom of Patliputra, was taken away by Pushyamitra Sunga, and after him came the Sunga dynasty. Okay, with this we come to an end. Just let us quickly read post Mauryan kingdoms. The Mauryan Empire ended 2200 years ago. Several new kingdoms and dynasties arose and fell in its place. The Indo-Greeks. The Indo-Greeks ruled in the northwest for 100 years. They were pushed out by the Shakas who came from Central Asia. The Shakas were defeated by the Kushans about 2000 years ago. The Saka kingdoms were ultimately defeated by the Guptas. So let me just quickly tell you what happened. After the Mauryan Empire, Sunga dynasty came, and after Sungas, it was the Shakas who came to power. After Shakas ruling for a certain time, it was the Kushanas who came to power. Then Satavahanas. The Shakas fought several wars with Satavahanas who ruled parts of western and central India. The Satavahanas established their kingdom 2100 years ago and they lasted for about 400 years. About 1700 years ago, they were overthrown by the Vakatakas. So now these are the small kingdoms which are not very famous, though they established themselves, but they could not last and be very prominently visible. So it was after the Shakas, the Satavahanas took over, and they, later on, even they were overthrown. Then in South India, the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas ruled between 2200 to 1800 years ago. There were other two large kingdoms of Pallavas and Chalukyas. So these were the kingdoms of the south, the Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas, who ruled for a major time, and later on it was the Pallavas and Chalukyas also, who were another two large kingdoms. Now, at the same time, when Mauryans were ruling, see the Great Wall of China, it was being constructed, and the Chinese emperor, Chinese emperor known as Shi Huangdi started the construction of a wall on the northern border of his kingdom. It was built to protect his kingdom from invaders. It later came to be known as the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall is 2,700 kilometers from east to west. This wall was later completed by kings of different dynasties. It took its present shape under the ruler of Ming dynasty. That means it was the Ming rulers who finally finished and updated the present wall that we see. The wall has stars at regular intervals of 100 to 200 meters. It took about 2000 years to complete the wall as the boundaries of the empire kept shifting. So, the wall, can you see this picture? It was a huge wall. It took nearly 2000 years to be constructed and under various rulers. So, with this, we come to an end of the chapter. I hope everything is clear to each one of you. So, we stop here for today.